Hey, welcome back, beautiful soul. You are back for chapter 5. I'm so proud of you for sticking with it. It says a lot about how serious you are about your transformation and about you. You don't play about you, and I love that for you. So today we begin chapter 5 of Becoming Supernatural, Reconditioning the Body to a New Mind. This part of the book is so important because it begins to explain why change isn't just about thinking positive or thinking differently. It's about feeling differently consistently. So, yeah. In this section, Dr. Joe explains how the body memorizes the past and how stored energy from emotions and experiences can actually keep us stuck in old identities. I've been there before, even when the mind is ready to change. So it's not about intellectually wanting something different. It's about, is the body feeling safe enough to move past this identity that you've been living and step into something new? And if it doesn't, that's why we're in this work. If you've ever felt like you're doing the inner work, but your reality hasn't caught up yet, this section will help you understand why. Let's get right to it. This is chapter 5, Reconditioning the Body to a New Mind. In this chapter, we're going to discuss how to do a breathing technique we use before we start many of our meditations. I'm going to explain it in detail here because understanding how this works is vital to your ability to truly change your energy and free your body from the past. As you'll see, the proper use of the breath is one of the keys to becoming supernatural, and it's so true. To get all the benefits of this technique, your knowledge of what you will be doing and why you are doing it will serve as the foundation for the experience, and so will make the how easier for you, not to mention making the technique more effective. Once you understand the physiology of how this particular breath works, you will be able to assign meaning to the activity, put more intention behind it, do it properly, and experience all of the benefits of using the breath to pull the mind out of the body and then recondition your body to a new mind. By the way, as a former educator, I really do understand that when you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, it anchors in the how, and you have a stronger inner conviction for doing it, right? Like you have a stronger understanding and you do it with more conviction. And it also helps anchor in your will. Like you have an uncompromising will when you really know what you're doing. So I love that he teaches this way. Before we start, I want to review the thinking feeling loop we discussed in chapter 2 because the concepts are central to the meditation in this chapter. As you will recall, thoughts cause biochemical reactions in your brain that release chemical signals, and those chemical signals make the body feel exactly the way you were just thinking. Those feelings then cause you to generate more thoughts that make you feel the same way you were just thinking. So your thoughts drive your feelings, and your feelings drive your thoughts. And eventually, this loop hardwires your brain into the same patterns, which conditions your body into the what? The past. And because emotions are record of the past experiences, if you can think greater than how you feel, this thinking feeling loop, I'm sorry, go back to that. And because emotions are a record of past experiences, if you can't think greater than how you feel, this thinking feeling loop keeps you anchored to your past and creates a constant state of being. This is how the body becomes the mind, or in time, how your thoughts run you and your feelings own you. Ugh. So once your body becomes the mind of that emotion, your body is literally in the past. And since your body is your unconscious mind, it is so objective that it does not know the difference between the experience in your life that creates the emotion and the emotion you are creating by thought alone. We create emotions by thought alone all the time, especially when we assume the worst case scenario. Yeah. And once you are caught in this thinking feeling loop, the body believes it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The body believes it's in the same past experience because to the body, the emotion is literally the experience. Can you believe that? The emotion that you're feeling right now, your body thinks it's happening right now. And if you constantly live replaying that emotion over and over again, your body thinks it's just having a miserable experience over and over again. That's crazy, y'all. Let's say you had a few difficult experiences in your life that have branded you emotionally, and you've never got over the fear, bitterness, frustration, and resentment those experiences engendered. So every time you have an experience in your external environment that is similar in some way to what happened previously, the experience triggers you and you feel the same emotions that you did at the time of the first event. Once you feel the same emotion you felt 30 years ago when the event initially occurred, it's quite possible that you will behave in the same way you did at that time because those emotions are driving your conscious or unconscious thoughts and behaviors. Now, those emotions have become so familiar to you that you believe that's who you are. By the time you're in your mid 30s, if you keep thinking, acting, and feeling the same way without changing anything about yourself, the majority of you, the majority of who you are becomes a memorized set of automatic thoughts, reflexive emotional reactions, unconscious habits and behaviors, and subconscious beliefs and perceptions and routine familiar attitudes. In fact, 95% of who we are as adults is so habituated through repetition that the body has been programmed to be the mind. And the body, not the conscious mind, is running the show. That means that only about 5% of who we are is conscious, and the remaining 95% is a subconscious body mind program. So, in order to create something significantly different in our lives, we must find a way to pull the mind out of the body and change our state of being, which is exactly what the meditation I will teach you at the end of this chapter is designed to do. Who that was a lot. But in this next section, we're going to talk about how energy gets stored in the body. Now let's look at how the thinking and feeling loop works in relation to the body's energy centers, especially the first three, the survival centers, where it causes the most problems. That's because most people's thoughts and feelings activate those energy centers. As you'll remember from the previous chapter, each of the body's energy centers has its own individual energy, information, glands, hormones, chemistry, and neurocircuitry, and its own individual mini brain or mind, or really, each has a mind of its own. These mini brains become programmed in the body to operate subconsciously through the autonomic nervous system. In this way, each center has its own energy and corresponding level of consciousness, and each is associated with specific emotions corresponding to that center. So let's say you think a thought, such as, my boss is unfair. Figure 5.1 depicts how thinking that thought turns on neurological network in your brain. Then you have another thought, I'm underpaid, and you turn on a second neurological network. Then you think, I'm overworked. And now you're off to the races because the mind is the brain in action. If you keep thinking more thoughts along the same lines and you activate enough networks of neurons firing in tandem in a specific sequence, pattern, and combination, you produce a level of mind, which then creates an internal representation or an image of yourself in your brain's frontal lobe. It creates an identity, your I am, in your frontal lobe. That's where you can make your internal thoughts more real than your outer environment. In this case, you see yourself as an angry person. If you accept, believe, and surrender to that idea, that concept, or that image without any analysis, the neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that send information between neurons in your brain that produce that level of mind, begin to influence neuropeptides, which are chemical messengers created by the autonomic nervous system within the limbic brain. Think of neuropeptides as molecules of emotion. Those neuropeptides signal hormonal centers, in this case, turning on the adrenal glands in the third energy center. As the adrenal glands release their hormones, you're feeling pretty ticked off, and you broadcast a specific energy signature through the third energy center that, in effect, carries the message. Send me another reason to feel the way that I'm already feeling. Send me another reason to feel angry. As this center becomes activated, it produces a specific frequency that carries a particular message. Your brain monitors your chemical state, and the moment you feel angry, it's going to think more corresponding thoughts equal to how you feel. My boss is such a jerk. I should quit my job. What an idiot driver. My coworker stole my idea. I'm right and everyone else is wrong. It fires and wires similar circuits in the same way over and over again. And if you turn on enough of those circuits, you keep producing the same level of mind. This reaffirms your identity with the same image in your forebrain. And then the limbic brain creates more of the same neuropeptides, which then signal the same hormones from your third energy center. And you start to feel even more angry and frustrated, which then influences you to think more of the same corresponding thoughts. This sounds exhausting, does it? Doesn't it? Like it sounds exhausting for me to read it, but it's exactly the way we get stuck in this pattern. The cycle can go on and on for decades, whether what you're thinking is justified or not. And then the redundancy of that cycle hardwires the brain into a certain pattern. In this case, the pattern of anger, and repeatedly conditions the body emotionally into the past. Guys, this goes deep because a lot of people in the manifestation community who are learning about self concept, this is what he's talking about, how energy gets stored in the body and how it starts to shape the way you see yourself in relation to the people and circumstances in your world. And then that thought and emotion loop gets hardwired. And he said by the time we're 35, we are already a set of programs that's kind of pretty hardwired, and it takes some effort to recondition. He says the body becomes the mind of anger. So the anger is no longer in the mind and is in your brain. The 5% of your thought that is conscious. But instead, the emotion of anger becomes stored as energy in the body mind, the 95% of your mind that is subconscious. Because it's subconscious, you're not aware that you're doing this, but that is exactly what is happening. So all that emotion, which was originally created from thought, because all thoughts have a corresponding energy, becomes stored as energy in the body, stuck in the third center, the solar plexus. For my people who have digestive issues, pay attention. This stored energy produces a corresponding biological effect. In this case, it would be the adrenal fatigue, digestive problems, kidney issues, or a weakened immune system, not to mention other other psychological effects like a short temper, impatience, frustration, or intolerance. Over the years, you keep producing the same thoughts that keep signaling the same feelings, and you continue hardwiring your brain into this very finite pattern. And in the same way, you keep reconditioning the body to become the mind of anger. Thus, an enormous amount of your creative energy is stored in the body's third energy center as anger, bitterness, frustration, intolerance, impatience, control, or hatred. What if, instead of feeling angry, you start having thoughts that make you feel victimized or guilty? Life is too hard. I'm a bad parent. I shouldn't have been so rude. Did I do something wrong? If you take a look at figure 5.2, you'll see that the same thing happens. Thinking those thoughts turns on the different network of neurons in your brain. If you fire and wire enough of those networks, you produce a different level of mind, and the brain creates the internal image of yourself that reaffirms your identity, in this case, as a guilty person. You start thinking, God's going to punish me. Nobody loves me. I'm worthless. Once you accept, believe, and surrender to these guilty thoughts without any analysis, the neurotransmitters activating neural networks in your brain influence a different blend of neuropeptides. This time, neuropeptides that are equal to those thoughts about feeling guilty. And then those neuropeptides signal a different hormonal center, in this case, the second center. And over time, as you recreate the same loop of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking, you're going to begin to store your energy in the body in the second center. This begins to produce a biological effect. Since you feel guilt in your gut, you may start to feel nauseated or sick, or you may experience pain in this area of your body, along with emotions like suffering, unhappiness, or even sadness. If over time you keep feeling guilty, you think more guilty thoughts that fire and wire more neurons that signal more neuropeptides that cause the release of more hormones in the second center. As this happens, you continue to condition the body to become the mind of guilt and suffering. So you're storing more and more energy as an emotion in the second center. You also continue to broadcast a specific energetic signature carrying specific information through the second energy center into the body's energy field. So now let's say you start having a totally different set of thoughts. What happens if you have sexual fantasies about someone? Now you're turning on a different network of neurons in the brain and you're producing a different level of mind. And just as before, if you get enough of those networks firing and wiring, you're going to get a different internal representation in the frontal lobe of your brain. And once the thought or image you are paying attention to becomes more real than your outer world, in that moment, the thought literally becomes the experience, and the end product of that experience is a corresponding feeling. As a result, your body gets turned on. That center now is activated with a specific energy carrying a specific message or intent, which then turns on the individual plexus of neurons in that center to produce a specific mind, which then signals genes in the corresponding glands to make chemicals and hormones equal to those thoughts. Now you're convinced you're the stud or vixen of the universe. And if you accept, believe, and surrender to that thought or image of yourself without any analysis, then those neurotransmitters in the brain will begin to influence a different blend of neuropeptides in the limbic brain. They'll signal hormones in the first energy center, programming the autonomic nervous system to prepare that center to become activated. That means you starting to get turned on. I think you're very familiar with the biological effects that happen next. Yeah. Those biological reactions will cause you to keep feeling a certain way, and you're going to think more corresponding thoughts equal to that feeling. And now you're storing energy in the first center, and you are broadcasting a vibrational signature carrying a specific message from that center into the energy field in your body. Your brain is monitoring how you're feeling, and you're going to generate even more corresponding thoughts, and the cycle continues. This is how the body responds to the mind and ultimately becomes the mind. So now you understand how your thoughts condition your body to become the mind of whatever emotion you are experiencing, and how, when that happens, you're storing more energy in the corresponding energy center for that emotion. The center where the majority of the center where the majority of that energy gets stored is the one associated with the emotions you have been repeatedly experiencing. If you are overly lustful, overly sexed, overly preoccupied with wanting to be seen by others as sexually desirable, your energy is stuck in your first center. If you experience an overabundance of guilt, sadness, fear, depression, shame, unworthiness, low self esteem, suffering, and pain, your energy will become stuck in your second center. And if you have problems with anger, aggression, frustration, control issues, judgment, or self importance, your energy is stuck in your third center. Hopefully, by now, you have done the blessing of the energy centers meditation and have begun to experience how the energy in each of your centers is able to evolve from one center to the next, increasing its frequency as it moves up. In time, the body becomes the mind of that emotion. And once that energy is an emotion, I'm sorry, and once that energy as an emotion is stored, or more accurately, once it becomes trapped in one or more of those lower energy centers, then the body is literally in the past. This means you no longer have available energy to create new destinies. And when that happens, your body becomes more matter and less energy because you have, as you have read, the first three centers, which are based on survival emotions, shrink the vital field of energy surrounding your body. So when any energy is stuck in any of the lower three centers, you're actually pulling from your electromagnetic field because it's like it's overworking. Those lower centers start to overwork because they're trying to compensate for where there's no coherence. So it pulls from your electromagnetic field around you, aka your aura. And that is the actual energy that holds your vitality. So you don't have enough energy to heal. You don't have enough energy to really create what you really want to create because the energy is stuck somewhere in those survival centers. And that's why we learn what we're learning. To be clear, I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever have sex, enjoy food, or even feel stressed. What I am saying is that when you are out of balance, it's because the first three centers are out of balance. And imagine if all three of these survival centers became overstimulated all at once. You can easily see how your body's energy would diminish over time. When that happens, there's not much available energy for growth, repair, healing, creation, or even just returning to balance. By the same means, many people who feel out of balance may retreat from their lives and limit the amount of food they eat. By digesting less food, their body has more energy to balance itself. They may also abstain from sexual intercourse for a period of time to allow the body to restore itself. During their retreat, they will also remove themselves from the constant stimulation they normally receive from their environment, including their friends, kids, coworkers, appointments and schedules, job, computers, homes, and cell phones. This helps the body keep from reacting consciously or unconsciously to all those familiar elements in their outer world that they associate with thoughts and emotional memories from the past. So when I read this part, it just reminded me of like why people in spiritual practices will fast because when you're not overworking your digestive system, we're trying to break down food. Then let's say you do have energy stuck in those survival centers, then not having to digest food, it conserves some of your energy. So that's why people will fast for a certain amount of time and then they feel like they're more invigorated. They have more energy. That's cool and it actually does work. Same thing with practicing abstinence or being celibate. When you're not as sexually active, you're conserving that sexual energy from your first energy centers. So it makes sense why you would have more energy to do other things. But I think what Joe is trying to let us know is those things are cool and they absolutely do work, but there's another way to actually not have to live in those constant patterns and also to recharge each of our centers so that we can have more vitality, whether we fast or sustain in abstinence or celibacy, whatever the case may be. There's another way to do it, and it doesn't require as much effort. It just requires attention, consciousness, and focused energy. Anyways, the breath technique I'm about to teach you gives you a way to liberate that trapped energy that's stored in the first three centers so it could be free to flow to the brain from whence it came. And when you use the breath to liberate those emotions, I'm sorry, and when you use the breath to liberate those emotions, that energy becomes available for higher purposes. You'll have more energy to heal yourself, create a different life, manifest more wealth, or have a mystical experience, to name just a few possibilities. Those emotions that are stored in the body as energy will be transmuted into different types of energy carrying a different message through the elevated emotions of inspiration, freedom, unconditional love, and gratitude. It's the same energy, it's just locked up in the body. The breath is a way to pull the mind out of the body. You will be using your body as an instrument of consciousness to ascend your energy, turning those survival emotions into creative emotions. As you free your body from the chains of the past and liberate this energy, You have available energy to do the uncommon, to achieve the supernatural. And this part of chapter 5 actually concludes here. So, as we close out part 1, I want you to consider what patterns might your body be repeating without your conscious permission? Because clearly we wouldn't be doing this on purpose. None of us would be living by emotions of the past on purpose, especially if it causes us to feel stuck, stagnant, or defeated in our lives. Another thing I want you to consider is what would it look like to start interrupting that thought emotion loop, not just with thought, but with presence. Consider that. And we're actually going to get into the practice of that. So, in part 2, we'll explore how the body functions as a magnet and what that means for your future. I'll see you in the next video.